Hello and welcome to the Joe Ligato Show. I'm your host, Dr. Joe Ligato, and today we're going to be reading about Putin's statement on the current Israeli-Palestine conflict. And we have Putin's full statement here. The expansion of the conflict in the Middle East may lead to serious consequences, including the energy sector. So just to stop right there, America is in dire straits when it comes to energy right now. They have, if I remember correctly, the lowest levels of strategic petroleum reserve that they've ever had. They planned on restocking whenever the price became better, but the price is not getting better. It's actually getting worse, particularly because of this conflict. There are even some Islamic countries talking about stopping production of oil to the world, which would obviously increase oil prices because there would be lower oil supplies within the world. And we see that this conflict is likely going to make it so the Americans do not increase their strategic petroleum reserve for many months to come, because I do not think this conflict is going to end anytime soon. There's a lot more support behind Palestine than there has been in prior conflicts, because we're seeing that the multipolar world bloc is taking the side of the non-Western factions across the world because they believe that the non-Western factions are acting more ethically. And so the same people who are supporting Russia in the Russian Ukraine conflict are also supporting Palestine in the Israeli-Palestine conflict as well. And so you're seeing these kind of dividing lines between the West and the multipolar world, which if you listen to people like Alexander Dugin, the multipolar world is 6 civilizations fighting against the one Western civilization. So yeah, this is interesting. And if you're watching, prepare for oil prices to go up again. The Palestinian problem is in the heart of every Muslim, and I would go so far as to say it's in the heart of many people outside of the Muslim world, because we're just seeing people who are very sympathetic to their plight when facing against the West. People in Latin America are now watching things and they're more sympathetic to what's happening in places like Palestine, because they understand that their own conflict is a struggle against the West, just the same as Palestine's is a struggle against the West. And there's unifying forces there. There's a unification of purpose amongst this multipolar bloc. And it's perceived by them as a manifestation of injustice, elevated to an incredible degree. Action should be taken to reduce the number of civilian casualties. The United States neglected the mechanism in the Arab-Israeli conflict zone and relied on the material needs of the people in Palestine. When creating Israel, there was also talk about creating a sovereign Palestine, but this was never done. Okay, so now Putin is talking about creating a separate Palestine, which it's really impressive to see both Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping, the two people I would consider to be the leaders of the multipolar world. They're both coming out and saying, we want a two-state solution. We want to free Palestine as its own state with the 1967 borders. And that's going to be a huge disagreement in the future at a time when Israel is not particularly united, though it's entirely possible that this conflict is going to unite Israel again, which there's some reason to believe that was actually the purpose of this conflict allowing to occur. I'll probably get into that in another video, but if you want to hear more in the meantime, Brent Weinstein talked about that in a recent video, how suspicious it is that this conflict was allowed to occur in the first place, because there's a ton of evidence that just simple incompetence would not make sense, because the amount of people that had to be incompetent for this type of conflict to occur, for Hamas to get that far into Israel, you would have to have every level of society being incompetent, and you'd have to not have satellite footage. You'd have to not have any surveillance equipment in that area for those types of things to happen. I mean, there are so many suspicious things that I will probably get into in a future video, but if you want to watch more, Brett Weinstein has an hour and 40-some minute video talking about how suspicious this conflict is, particularly at a time when Israel was losing cohesion because people disagree with Netanyahu. So we'll see what happens there, but he goes over quite a few things, so I'd recommend watching that video. When creating Israel, okay, it is unknown whether it will be possible to calm the situation between Israel and Palestine in the near future, but this could lead to big problems. I don't think it's possible to calm that situation. Israel's going to have boots on the ground there for the foreseeable future, and Palestine has more international support than I feel like it's had in really decades, probably since like the 1967, really. Okay. Is unknown whether it will be possible, but this could lead to big problems. Both in the United States and in Israel, there are many supporters of the creation of an independent Palestinian state, but the forces advocating a military solution are gaining the upper hand. Yeah, that's shocking to me, actually. I mean, I expected people like Robert F. Kennedy to be in favor of like just letting Israel do whatever to the Palestinian people. I expected Hollywood to be in favor of Israel doing whatever it wants against the Palestinian people. I expected the neoconservatives and neoliberals to allow Israel to do whatever it wants with the Palestinian people. I didn't expect people like Tulsi Gabbard to come out and say that Israel can really just do whatever it wants. She believed a lot of the what type of propaganda is it being called now? The atrocity propaganda, I think, is the term I've been hearing a lot. So atrocity propaganda, it seems like people like Tulsi Gabbard are starting to believe it as well. So you're just seeing both Democrats and Republicans, and then you're also seeing independents, third-party people. They're all coming out in support of Israel. And that's not because Israel actually has a persuasive, legitimate case for why they should be allowed to do what they're doing, which is cutting off the water and food supply to Palestine, which is illegal under international law. But that's just how our politics work. I've talked about this in other videos, but the majority of donor money comes from Americans of Jewish descent, which make up about 2% of the population. I know that's a very inconvenient fact, but whether you're a Democratic politician or Republican politician, both Democrats and Republicans, the majority of their funding comes from Americans of Jewish descent. And quite a lot of those Americans are also Zionists who are very supportive of Israel. And so when you have an election system where people need to get as much funding as possible, you have to support Israel. Whether you're a part of the duopoly, the Republicans or Democrats, or if you're a third party or independent candidate, if you want to get elected in any way, shape, or form, the donor money comes from people of American Jewish descent. I don't think that should be upsetting to hear. It's a fact. You can look it up yourself. And that's just kind of how things are. America is strongly influenced by Zionism just because of that's where the money is. So yes, everyone is advocating for a military solution that I can see among politicians in the West, particularly in America. The bitterness in Israel and Palestine is very great, but we must strive to minimize civilian losses, leave children and women alone. The aggravation in Israel will not affect oil production, but it may affect logistics, insurance, and freight. Okay, so what he's saying there is oil production is only one part of what decides oil prices. Also, you have things like the logistics and freight, so getting the oil to places correctly, and then the insurance, so like actually paying to make sure that things are okay with the oil transportation. Those things will be affected by this conflict. And I actually do think oil production may be affected because I've heard some countries start to talk about any countries that support Israel, they're going to just cut off trade of oil to those countries, which would increase the price of oil as well. And they would probably lower oil production if they're not trading with some countries of the world, if they're not trading really with the whole West at that point. And so there's reason to believe that energy is going to be a major problem in the future. The accusations against Iran of involvement in the aggravation of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict are unsubstantiated, and people are walking that back too because I think the West is realizing that they are facing conflicts in multiple theaters of war at this point, and so they can't really involve Iran directly, particularly when Iran is having a rapprochement. They're getting along with Saudi Arabia. It would not be good for them, and so the United States is actually trying to keep this conflict contained to just Palestine. They want to beat up on the people who don't have food and water right now instead of facing a power like Iran. And so, yeah, that's the situation that they find themselves in right now. Putin goes on to say, I don't understand why the United States is pulling aircraft carrier groups towards Israel. This is aggravating the situation. Okay, so the United States they have military advisors on the ground already. They're bringing in military assets. They're fully willing to support Israel in any way, shape, or form. And as we know from prior conflicts, that the United States is even willing to sacrifice its own people in order to potentially foment a conflict with the enemies of Israel. If you want to learn more about that, I don't want to go into too much detail again because I like to keep my YouTube channel, but you can look up the USS Liberty to understand what I'm talking about there. Initially, when the decision was made to create the state of Israel, a parallel decision was made to create a second state. Initially, it was about the creation of two independent sovereign states, Israel and Palestine. Israel, as you know, was created, but Palestine as an independent sovereign state was never created. That was a part of the original Balfour Agreement. I believe it was in 1917. Britain said, like, yeah, you can have Israel to Jewish people around the world, but we also want to create Palestine, and we want to make sure that minority rights are protected within Israel. And obviously, those things did not occur. Palestine was not created, and minority rights were really not protected in Israel either. So that's the tweet. A lot of interesting information from Vladimir Putin here. I really do think that it's important that we constantly monitor what Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping are saying, because they're really deciding the direction of the world at this point. And it's really impressive because Russia should not be as strong as it actually is right now. Vladimir Putin is, I like to say, he's making it so Russia is able to punch above its weight class right now. They're doing exceptionally well, given just the size of their country and how difficult it is to manage a country of that size with that degree of differences and potential problems. So anyways, that is the end of our video. Thank you for watching, and please give us a thumbs up. Please subscribe to our channel for more content, and please leave us a comment in the comment box. So thanks again, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye.